Hello, my name is Andrew Donaldson. I'm going to be talking today about user interfaces. This is actually a talk that I gave at CodeCumbria, so I'm just recording it so we can stick it online. When I talk about user interfaces, it's not going to be about pixels, it's going to be how we actually interact with things. So more specifically, how we interact with apps. So right now we interact with computers with keyboards, with mice, with touchscreens. Touchscreens are the only kind of modern or the only thing that's changed recently in terms of our interactions with computers. And that's because of, I guess, the market penetration of phones and tablets and that sort of thing. The trackpads have become more popular. They've been about for a while, but I think Apple have kind of nailed it with the recent ones because they're starting to act more like, that you can capture gestures on them, so they're a bit more flexible rather than that annoying thing at the front of your laptop. You also have the leap motion, which is a fantastic bit of kit, or so it looks, but it seems a toy or a gimmick. I've only seen one kind of serious thing made with it, and it was I think it was Telsa did it, and it was a kind of 3D prototyping system, which looked fantastic. But I couldn't imagine buying a Leap Motion with the intention of using it daily as part of my workflow. So I was in an electronics shop recently, looking at wireless speakers, Sonos. And on top of the speaker, they were wanting to sell me a remote control, a device that you could browse your music in your library and control your wireless speakers. It was a nice little device. It had good battery life. It was another remote control, but they wanted 250 quid for it. The salesman took me aside and said, "Why don't you just download the free app for your phone?" Similarly, I'm a keen cyclist, and you can purchase cycling computers that track where you've been, how fast you've gone, what hills you've covered. And these are fairly capable devices. Again, great battery life, small size, robust, but 250 quid. Or you can use an app for your phone. So this got me thinking, why don't we use our phones more? Or more accurately, why don't we use the phones that we have at the same time as our computers? Why don't we use them as a secondary control device for websites or applications? If these kind of products that I spoke about before could be replaced by this computer in your pocket, rather than waiting for a new peripheral to come out, why don't we invent one? Using the phone as a kind of prototyping tool. Yeah, so we've got this powerful handheld computer that's network connected, and it's got physical sensors, and so why don't we make more use of it? So I guess what I'm going to cover on the next few slides are some ideas what we could actually do with these devices, just to get the kind of ball rolling. So the first one, I work occasionally on a time tracking app that you set up jobs and you record your time against particular clients. Traditionally, it works with a button to start a timer, but I was trying to think of something. To be honest, I was trying to think of a gimmick, something a bit more interesting, just try and make it stand out, that would kind of further my goals of using the phone as a secondary control device. So the first one that I was thinking was this idea of flipping to focus. You would be working. You would use your computer to set up your business, but then on your phone you would have a version of the website, not an exact replica, only smaller. You would have a very focused, so maybe it would only show like a to-do list, the tasks that you're specifically wanting to work on today. You would choose a task and then take your phone and place it on the table. And that act of placing your phone on the table face down would start a timer. As soon as you lifted your phone back up, it would stop that timer. So why would this work? What would be the point in it? Well, while your phone is down, you can't play with it. it's in use, and if you do want to play with it, you pick it up and your timer stops. So you could argue that there's accuracy if that was a key feature you're wanting to play up. Colleagues also have a kind of relatively subtle visual cue that you're working away, and you shouldn't be interrupted. Again, arguably headphones would probably be better than this to kind of signal this from a distance. But for me, the important one is it's a physical action of I'm getting started. I'm kicking off this work. I'm doing something, and sometimes that's a great way to kind of motivate you to carry on working for the next however long. So what technology would we use? I was imagining that this would use the gyro sensors in the phone to determine the orientation. You could do this with web apps, HTML5 and JavaScript, but I've found that the browsers keep falling asleep, which ruins the flow completely. Also, specifically in JavaScript, you need to calibrate the device, so you would need to put the device flat on the table before starting the kind of gyroscopic capture, which isn't fatal, but it's a bit annoying. Okay, the second idea that I have is the grandly titled Revolution, which is a bit of a dumb name, but I'm sticking with it for now. The idea with this one is a means of selecting values based on feedback. So a good idea to think of this is to think of using a control on a hi-fi. You would never say to somebody, stick the volume to level 2. You would say to them, turn it up or turn it down. And as you played with the dial, you would listen to the sound, whether it was the volume that you wanted, and then you would stop. So my idea is that with your phone, you would place your phone on the table and rotate it in your hands, and have some sort of feedback played through the speakers or on your main desktop. You could push this a little bit further and use this to augment the flipping idea before. So if your phone is pointed away from you as you flip it, then perhaps it means you're working on non-billable work. But the interesting thing about this is that power users, people who use your apps every day, won't mind, probably in my opinion, they won't mind the interface being a little bit more strange, a little bit less discoverable, as long as there's a meaningful benefit for them. Okay, so the technology for this one would be to use the compass. That gives you quite fine control, quite granular control of the selector as you turn it around. Similar to before, the web app keeps falling asleep, so it's not quite ready yet to do purely HTML and CSS. You would have to, HTML and JavaScript. You would have to do this as a native application. Okay, another idea was the idea of using your touchscreen with physical objects. So touchscreens don't just react to fingers; they also they basically react to something that is conductive. Now, that's not the full picture, but it's good enough for now. So if you had physical objects such as chess pieces or dials, and you added conductive pads to the bottom of them in a particular configuration, then you could using the touch APIs detect the locations of these points and use them as a signature to recognize each object. You could also track the objects based on the rotation of those patterns. You could also use this to capture progress as you move a chess piece across the screen or something, just some sort of physical representation of what you're working on. Okay, so in general, these things are all limited by the fact that the operating system's access to the web browsers are terrible at the moment. The web browsers themselves are very capable, but they keep falling asleep. They have to be calibrated in certain ways. They can't run in the background. All these little things can be solved by something like Cordova, the Adobe PhoneGap system. But if we want this to be played with more, it really needs to be in the hands of web developers. It has to cost nothing. So for me, that's a big stumbling block. But really, to be practical, this stuff has to be a native application. The saving grace of web apps in this case is that they are like really good for communication between servers and clients at the moment. Real-time communications, WebSockets, RTC. It's getting better and better. I think Google had a game you could play using your phone as a control pad. Perfect example of how to use this tech. So how can we solve that problem? My suggestion in the meantime is to create a customizable native application that you can load profiles into containing gestures. And when those gestures are detected, an API call is made, which you would configure within the app. Now, granted, it requires basically a developer to set it up. It's not a very commercial idea, it's not very mainstream, but by having this as an app that's available, web developers will be able to play with this without having to worry about building the app and buying certificates in order to get this onto the device. It would open up the sandbox for everyone to play in, and it would lower the barrier to experimentation. The next time you're struggling to fit in some UI elements, instead of looking at your screen and pushing about pixels, perhaps take your phone from your pocket and think about making your interactions a little bit more real. Thanks for listening. My name is Andrew Donaldson. You can grab me here on these Twitter handles if you have any questions. Thanks very much.